literacy is really important. It unlocks lifelong learning, and it enables a child to read and comprehend and to enjoy what they're trying to learn. Without that root of Arabic language learning, they won't be able to really unlock their full potential. They won't be able to understand their culture, their heritage, the stories of their history.
But also we work very hard to make sure that the content is aligned with the local curriculum. Because we don't want to create a parallel system, it's very important that whatever we provide is fitting seamlessly into the child's existing environment, including, of course, the cultural aspect of that environment.
Welcome back to Wise on Air, the show where we talk to the world's leading minds on the future of education. My name is Bassem Hijazi, producer of the show, and in this episode, we address a challenge facing educators worldwide. How do we prepare students for the future while honoring our cultural roots? For this, we feature two representatives of Wise Prize finalists who demonstrate the power of community-driven education solutions. Fadia Hamdi from the Queen Rania Foundation in Jordan shares how Iqrali.jo empowers parents to strengthen their children's Arabic literacy foundations through reading. And from the United States, Abdulhamid Haidar, founder and CEO of Darsel, explains how his WhatsApp bot designed to teach children maths ensures AI and edtech solutions reach students who are often left behind. These innovations show that the most effective educational solutions often emerge from deep understanding of local contexts and community needs. So let's jump to WISE Programs Associate Aldana Samet to kick off the conversation.
Abdulhamid and Fadia, thank you for joining us today. Before we start off, we'd like to know some information about your solution. So could you please provide us like a brief on your solution as well as the MVP that you've been developing with the help of Wise Prize?
Of course. Thank you. Iqrali.jo is an application and a platform by the Queen Rania Foundation, which aims to encourage and empower parents to start reading with their children from birth. The aim of the program as a whole is to provide parents with what they need from resources, information and knowledge, empowerment and encouragement to read with their children and create a love of learning in Arabic.
And Darsel is a personalized learning chatbot that allows students to practice and learn math through simple messaging platforms like WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger. And for WISE, we launched a chatbot specifically for grade 4 students who attend government schools in Jordan.
And a question for you, Fadia. So in what ways does supporting Arabic language literacy help in preserving not just the language, but also the heritage?
Of course. So when it comes to learning in general, literacy is a cornerstone. Literacy is really important. It unlocks lifelong learning, and it enables a child to read and comprehend and to enjoy what they're trying to learn. And so Arabic language here is very essential. As children go to school, they need to be prepared and ready with the literacy skills in Arabic that they need to succeed as learners. Not just that, but also reading in general unlocks so much potential in children. It enables them to learn so much about their own culture, about heritage, about different cultures and different countries and different sciences and languages. Without that root of Arabic language learning, they won't be able to really unlock their full potential. They won't be able to understand their culture, their heritage, the stories of their history and predecessor civilizations. And it's really important to allow children to be grassrooted in their own heritage, in their own culture, to feel that they belong to not just a language, not just a country, but a whole Arab world, a whole Arab civilization that existed for so long. It allows them to learn religion and to learn history, to be proud of who they are and the Arabic language and culture that they come from.
Correct. Yes, I completely agree, especially since the parents are reading the books in Arabic. So this also helps, preserve the language, but also preserve the heritage as well. So Abdulhamid, since you're thinking, for example, on scaling your solution or moving to different countries, how can you envision adapting your tool to different cultures as well?
So language is also very important for us. So without tools like Iqrali, if the students don't have basic literacy, they're not able to use our tool. Even though we're focused on math, we, like kind of any other solution, require a basic level of literacy. And making sure that the content that we have wherever we work is adapted to not just the local language, but also to the local context in terms of, for example, the word problems that you use or the scenarios that you have in our questions. But also we work very hard to make sure that the content is aligned with the local curriculum. So if a grade 4 student is using our chatbot, the content that they see on our chatbot perfectly mirrors what they're learning in school. The practice questions look like what they see in their textbook. The solutions are similar to what their teachers are trained to provide. And that's because we don't want to create a parallel system. It's very important that whatever we provide is fitting seamlessly into the child's existing environment, including, of course, the cultural aspect of that environment.
That's very interesting because we had so many debates as we were developing Iqrali. Like, for example, initially what we want a parent to hold a book, bring their kid, cuddle and snuggle with them and enjoy this moment together. It's not about a read aloud. It's not about a system that reads books for you. It's about a parent-child connection. And this is what creates a love of reading. It's not about just enjoying a story. There's a lot of emotional connection. Like for me, for example, I remember my childhood. I remember reading with my parents and them reading stories to me, telling me stories and reading stories. And this is what creates long-lasting memories. And so a lot of the decisions that we came across as we were developing the solution is about preserving connection, preserving like this authenticity in the app and in the offering that we have. And also working with local publishers and local authors to bring in this culture. We don't want, like, I know there are so many excellent translated books in Arabic from English and from French and Swedish and so many other languages. But then how do we bring in that cultural aspect and relevance and context? As Abdulhamid said, it's really important that a child connects with their own real life, their daily like interactions with people, with what streets look like, what buildings look like, and what a school is. And where it's nice to introduce some differences, it's also nice to see similarities and see themselves in these stories that they're reading, in these books and in these interactions. And so even as we're trying to embed AI storytelling, for example, we found that having a parent guide this process of generating an AI story is really important to preserve that kind of personalization and connection to the real world that a child is living.
Kind of like you're changing the mindset of the parents, but still you're preserving the connection in between the parents and the children.
Exactly.
I really think that this is such an important factor, because I think parents need to realize the importance of the influence that they have on their children, especially like when it comes to education. So how does your solution, Abdulhamid, take into account different mathematical literacies? Or in other words, how is your solution inclusive?
So there's two dimensions here. The first is that there is a digital divide. A lot of students don't have their own laptops at home. There are very few devices at the household level. Sometimes, very often, there's only, for example, one phone that is the mother's or the father's phone and limited access to it. And then the other digital constraint tends to be around data. So data in many countries is expensive. Many households don't have internet connection at all. And very often you'll have households that maybe have data at the beginning of the month and then the package runs out. So then now there's no more data. So we've worked very hard to make sure that our solution from a digital standpoint has the minimum requirements. So we're using solutions like WhatsApp, which are, the most prevalent and used messaging channels that are already familiar to parents, already trusted. They don't have to download a new application. They don't have to even create a new account. And of course, because it's WhatsApp, it also has minimal data requirements. It's mostly texting, and on occasion we use very small size pictures, but most of it is texting. So it doesn't require nearly as much data as more conventional tech solutions, like, for example, anything that is video-based requires infinitely more data than what we do. So from a digital standpoint, we've tried to make it as accessible as possible, keeping in mind that many of the students we work with, across the world, have digital limitations. And then the second point is around their academic background and where they are in math. The big crisis in math learning is that most students are behind. They're not where they're supposed to be in the curriculum. So you walk into a grade 4 classroom, and there are many students who missed out on key concepts from grade 1, grade 2, grade 3. You're trying to teach them multiplication, but they're still struggling with addition. And that's a catastrophe. And this is where our AI comes in, and this is why it's such a valuable tool. Because our personalization engine is essentially figuring out where students are getting stuck. It's figuring out the right level that is needed for every student and giving them that right content. So students that are struggling, that are falling behind, the algorithm automatically gives them the right content to help them catch up with the curriculum. And of course, stronger students get also content that is more advanced, more aligned with what they need at that point in time.
And of course, like with the constant advancement of technologies, I'd like to know, like from both of you, like how do you involve families, local leaders, or teachers in shaping the roadmap of your solution? Fadia, if you can inform that.
Yeah, so at the Queen Rania Foundation, we always aim to co-design with parents, with teachers when needed, with children themselves. Recently, we've been experimenting with surveying or like a play-based kind of testing with students, and it's really exciting to see how young learners also use different like tools and solutions and interact with it. And you can like while observing, you can see and learn a lot from what's taking place there. We also like to partner with different organizations, community-based centers. We don't believe in reinventing the wheel, and we believe that building on each other's success really serves the end user at the end. And this is what we want. We want for every child to have the best opportunities, and to be able to do that, we really need to all come together, collaborate in making that successful. Every organization brings in something unique. We can all learn from each other, and we can all build something together.
Yeah, I think really like the public and the private sector should always work together towards the goals that they're trying to achieve, especially when it comes to education, health, or any other important field that really elevates the society or the society or the country that you're living in. Abdulhamid, if you want to give us some feedback.
Yeah, we have a very similar approach, and we work very closely with government partners. So in Jordan, it's with the Ministry of Education, and everything that you do is through them. So in our case, the math teachers are the ones that are telling students about Darsel. They're the ones that are getting reports on students' usage of Darsel. They're the ones, most importantly, who are motivating kids to use it on a continuous basis and also providing the necessary support. And of course, the teachers, the entire kind of education ecosystem, all the way to parents and students through focus groups are involved, not just in the initial design, but also with continuous feedback. So we're always collecting feedback from teachers, from the field, from schools on what's working and what's not working. Both high-level feedback, but also sometimes it's very granular. Sometimes we get feedback on, oh, this particular question I didn't like, or it didn't make sense to me. So even at that level, being able to collect that feedback at a large scale from teachers across the country has been very, very useful. And it allows us to make sure that our solution is constantly being kind of adapted to the local needs of the users that we're ultimately trying to positively impact.
Okay, so now speaking about different cultures, how do you actually, or like what strategies are you using to make your platforms accessible for example, refugee families, marginalized communities? How do you ensure that?
Yeah, so as I said, for us at Queen Rania Foundation, one, we're evidence-driven. Two, we believe that every child in Jordan, in the Arab world, deserves quality education. And every child means everyone. And so when we started developing this solution, for example, even the research included like refugee families, rural areas. It was a nationwide survey. And then moving into that, we really consider the differences in each community. So, for example, one of the ways we reach users is not online, it's through the health centers. Health centers are widespread across the country. They are free. Anyone can go take their child to take their mandatory vaccines. And so like 95% of Jordanian children between the age of 0 to 18 months go to a health center. And that is why we created this partnership with the Ministry of Health to try and reach everyone in Jordan, no matter what. On a technical aspect, we did something similar to what Abdulhamid mentioned, which is try to de-spec and use, for example, offline synchronization of content, so that when they're in the health center, they can be connected to internet. They download the whole library of books and tips and tools that they use as they read with their children. And then at home, they don't need internet. They don't need to consume their bundles. We try to really compress the content that we have so that it's clear and it has it's of decent quality, yet it doesn't really require a lot of storage and bandwidth from users. And that's really important if you want something to work across the board for everyone to use comfortably and not feel it's a burden.
Yeah, you're right. I think especially like talking about data, and there's an assumption maybe that a lot of people have accessibility full time, but that's not really the case. So taking that into consideration into your solution is actually a very smart idea. And I think you can also utilize other places that are commonly visited to also do that, maybe shopping malls or any other locations. So for Darsel, I have a question to you. So what lesson have you learned from implementing Darsel in diverse educational contexts?
Yeah, it's a good one. And there are many, differences, obviously, in terms of culture, in terms of the content, the language. In some countries where we work, for example, parents are more hesitant to use technology or to give their devices to students. In other countries, less so. It's already kind of common practice. So, and a lot of it comes from kind of other events that are happening and how technology is being used in that community, and that affects kind of the levels of trust that communities might have with solutions like WhatsApp. School systems also. In some countries, there are residential school systems. So, for example, government boarding schools that you don't see in other countries. So we've had to adapt our kind of context and our solution to these different places. One thing that has been common is the importance of the human element. I think a lot of the ETA conversation tends to be around the technology, the content, but at the end of the day, achieving impact requires behavior change by the student, by the parent, by the teacher. So everywhere we've worked, we've had to think very carefully about how we are creating kind of the right systems and the right incentives in order to get the behavior changes that we need so that ultimately the student learns more. So irrespective of the technology, there's a lot that we invest in working closely with the teachers and understanding what the schools need, what the parents need, and what the students need in order to get the behavioral change to happen. Because without that motivation, it's very hard to get students to not only use the technology for the first time, but also to keep using it. So we invest a lot actually in supporting the teachers at a very human level in order to get the students to use the technology.
Yeah. And speaking about like behavioral change, I think the ones that are really vulnerable and need to be using these solutions are the ones that are not getting enough emphasis and, or maybe not, they don't have that much motivation when it comes to reading, for example, or practicing math. So how do you try to incentivize students or parents to use your solutions?
So when it comes to behavior change, for example, or creating new habits, you really need to focus on the fact and recognize the fact that the immediate benefits for a parent should outweigh the costs. The costs could be money-wise if they are buying books, if we're asking them to buy books or download, buy devices, for example. That's a cost. A cost can also be their time, their energy, their mental mindset. Taking time out of, for example, the time that they spend relaxing or watching TV, that's also a cost. And so you need to show them that the benefit of doing this behavior right now, of bringing your child onto your lap and reading a book together, is actually more beneficial. The benefits are more important. You'll have a very nice moment together. You'll bond with your child. You'll create lifelong learning opportunities for them. We will instill a love of learning that goes on with them as they graduate from school and then succeed as professionals in their life. And that's really important for parents. Every parent at the end want their child to succeed, to do better in life. And this is what motivates parents to do certain behavior.
Correct. I completely agree. Abdulhamid, what do you think about that?
I completely agree. I think ultimately you want to make the ask, whether it's from the teacher or the parent or the student, as simple as possible to implement and as rewarding as possible. So simple for us is making sure that it's on WhatsApp. They're already using it. It's easy to access. For teachers, they get reports also through WhatsApp, so it's very easy for them to engage with students, and it doesn't require that much extra effort or an extra burden, because we know that teachers are overwhelmed by kind of all of the things that they already have to do. And then the other part is also trying to make it as kind of fun and rewarding as possible. And we do a lot of that through gamification and kind of motivational features that are designed to ultimately make the students kind of enjoy the time that they're spending on our chatbot, and also kind of feel good about their math abilities, and realize that they can, irrespective of where they're starting, that they can all become good at math. And even for schools and teachers, gamification is quite effective, where we have created some sort of a spirit of competition between different schools on like who's using the chatbot and kind of what the usage levels are and kind of who's learning more. So these small interventions and are very important from a design perspective, because the easier you make the solution and the more fun you make it, the more usage you'll get, and ultimately the more impact you'll be able to achieve.
How did your involvement with the WISE Prize help you in adapting the MVP, and what are you going to do about it moving forward?
So for us at the Queen Rania Foundation, honestly, it's a great recognition for Iqrali's program. It's also a great opportunity for regional collaboration, regional access. We all share a similar language, a very close culture and heritage, and it's really nice to be connected to other similar, like-minded organizations that are trying to also work towards better learning opportunities for everyone. And it's also the program itself on WISE Prize. It really allowed us access to so many different resources and experts in different fields, collaborating with everyone and like brainstorming and talking, exploring solutions with either the other finalists or with the experts at WISE, allowed us to also refine our solutions in a way that make more sense when it comes to, for example, regional reach, thinking about scale, or even like thinking about how to include innovation in a meaningful way in our solutions.
Correct. I'm glad that you found a lot of positive outcomes from the program. And I think really, as you said, like bringing the community together, and I think that's one of the purpose of creating a WISE community, is to not just bring educators, but also bring innovators together. And that's the whole purpose behind that. So Abdulhamid, can you tell us more about your experience with WISE, especially the MVP? Why did you focus, for example, on the fourth grade, and do you want to expand on that in the upcoming years?
Yeah, absolutely. So for us, launching a product for grade 4 students was a massive milestone and a very strategic and important one. Because we've realized from working with students in kind of older grades that, by the time they get there, there's already large learning losses. And we wanted to go as early as possible in order to address those learning gaps before they grow. And really, this was an experiment. We weren't sure if it was going to work for younger students. Thankfully, it was a very successful experiment, and we've actually had amazing usage levels with students. And right now, we're conducting a randomized control trial to measure the impact that we've had on not only the math learning outcomes of students, but also on social and emotional learning outcomes. And this experiment was only possible with WISE's support, including a lot of the thinking that we did together, not just with the WISE team, but also with the other finalists on, how do we kind of collect user feedback? How do we think about designing the product for younger kids? How do we engage parents in ways that we weren't previously engaging parents, because it wasn't necessary with older kids? So a lot of the new features and new efforts that we launched this year were only possible because of our participation in the WISE program. And if the results are what we hope they will be, then we will not only be scaling this across Jordan, but also across many other countries where we also work.
Thank you, Fadia and Abdulhamid, for your time, and it was nice having you on the WISE on Air podcast.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
We had a great time.